Hello, I'm Rachel, and now we're going to have a look together at day 3 of Holy Week. Day 3 of Holy Week is a really challenging and confrontational and busy day for Jesus. We are having a look at Matthew 21 to Matthew 24. There's an awful lot that's going on. It's a very busy day for him. He has the leading priests and the elders they challenge his authority. They say to him, "Who gave you the right to do these things?" Then he tells the story, the parable of the two sons, and he accuses the elders and the religious leaders of refusing to believe that John the Baptist came from God and refusing to repent of their sins. Then we have another parable that Jesus tells us about the evil farmers. They kill the landowners instead of looking after the land and giving the landowner what's due to him. They kill the servants, and then they eventually kill the sons. And the leaders of the chief priests, they all realise that Jesus is referring to them as the evil farmers, and they are not happy, and they plot to arrest him. They are not happy with him. Then there is a time where the Pharisees they challenge Jesus on paying taxes, and they challenge him on who a person will be married to when they get to heaven if they've had multiple husbands. And he answers them every time. He's got an answer for them. And he actually says that the leaders and the Pharisees and the crowds were amazed at his response and his answers. Then we have in chapter 23, he's talking to the religious leaders. And he criticises them. It's a really difficult thing to read if you're a religious leader of the time. He says that they crush people with unbearable religious demands, but they don't practice what they preach. He says that everything is for show, that they're only interested in what's on the outside. They're not interested in what's going on in their own hearts. Jesus calls them blind guides. Blind guide, that's useless. A blind guide is useless, isn't it? And he keeps saying, "What sorrow awaits you as teachers of the religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites." He calls them hypocrites. That is a very confrontational, tricky conversation that Jesus is having. And it's full, day 3 is full of that. And then we have chapter 24, where Jesus talks about the future, and that's a whole other story, isn't it? He talks about the future. And he talks about his return, but he says that no one knows the day or the hour. These are very difficult, challenging confrontational conversations that Jesus has with people that are supposed to be on his side. They are. But they're just not seeing Jesus for who he is, and they're not accepting the truth that Jesus is speaking. And right in the middle of this, something that really drew my attention, right in the middle of all this, where Jesus seems to know that there's time running out and I've got things to say and there's things that I need to do. Right in the middle of this, we see Matthew 22, verse 34 to 39. And it says, "But when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees with his reply, they met together to question him again. And one of them, an expert in religious law, tried to trap him with this question: 'Teacher, which is the most important commandment of the law of Moses?' And Jesus replied, 'You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And a second is equally important: love your neighbour as you love yourself.' The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments." In the middle of all of that, Jesus talks about love. And I think that is a reminder to us. I'm not sure that the religious leaders and the Pharisees and the Sadducees had love in mind. I don't think that loving God and loving others were the centre of their thinking. But Jesus reminds us that love is the most important commandment. It reminds us that love is the most important thing. And maybe that's something that we need to remember. Maybe we have, I don't know what your week's been like. I don't know what your situations are like at the moment. Maybe you've got some confrontational stuff going on. Maybe you've got some tricky things that you're dealing with. Keep love as the centre of it all. Love God, love other people, love yourself. And if you find that difficult, I have this little picture which I realise is going to be back to front, but it says we love because he first loved us, and that's from 1 John 4 verse 19. We love because he first loved us, and he showed that by sending us Jesus. Keep that in the forefront of your mind.